Good afternoon. Good afternoon. 1:30 here, East Coast time. You're at work at Daily, and this is a open chat. I hope you're having a great day. Friday. Yes, Friday. You know how you know it's Friday? You have the next day off. I know, maybe not funny, but it's funny to me because in my business, you work whatever day it is, and the day that you have off, the day before that is Friday. So it's a bit of a production kind of thing. So welcome to the 1:30 session. We're gonna talk about leadership, how to lead without title. Welcome you guys here. And leadership without without the title. Yeah, we'll delve into that. I pulled a quote I wanted to read, excuse me, and give a couple people a couple minutes to get in here and figure out what's going on. Um, so let me enable the Q&A here. That's ready to go. Um, so first, a little bit about me. I am a creative producer, assistant director in the events, film, advertising uh, world, and what that means. What a creative producer does is pull together the elements. Whether it's from a storyboard to bring it to life, or whether it's from a concept to bring it to life, or a script with a film to bring it to life. It's understanding how to build something that doesn't exist into entertainment or into advertising or into promotional value or into a concert. So there's imagination, and then there is determination, and then there is leadership, and a lot of questions and a lot of figuring out. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of hurdles, a lot of talented people that you work with to get it done too. So, excuse me, I have a bit of a sinus thing going on. So this quote, that's kind of the nutshell of what I do for a living, right? I'm on a television commercial or on a television show, or if you've ever been someplace and see a stunt, a brand doing a stunt where there's a flash mob, or maybe the skydivers, or a gigantic float going by a city you're in with a promotional message on it, or you're in Times Square and you see a crazy, unique promotional vehicle handing out fluffy somethings and making a brand impression, making a connection. Um, so what I do in the end, sometimes I boil it down because it works across so many spectrums that I'm really a audience engagement specialist, which, I'm trying to convey a message to an audience to understand either a brand message, a piece of entertainment, advertising, or just to feel good. Sometimes brands do stuff in their brand essence to make people feel good. So here we go. Enough rambling, a little background on me, but it doesn't matter what you do. If you want to get to the next level, if you want to be in charge, if you want to step up, which most people do, um, how do you do that? How do you do that when you're a low man on a totem pole? How do you do that when you just joined the team? How do you do that when there's real alphas on top of you? And, you know, all of these things, maybe we'll delve in a little bit. None of them are straight line. Um, so, but the leadership quote that I picked out that I wanted to read was: leadership is not about a title or destination. It's about impact, influence, and inspiration. Yes. One more time. Leadership is not about a title or a designation. It is about impact, influence, and inspiration. Think about it. All right. You don't have to be the one in charge to be the one who's setting the standard. Think about your relationships with your friends. Think about a group of people you're in, some peers. Think about who the alpha is and why they're the leader. Did anyone appoint them the leader? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just because they have a quietness or a calm or a point of view. Um, so there's a lot to be said for how you handle yourself in leadership. As I described in my business, I have um, a lot of people. I can go to work and have 25 to 200 people that are looking towards the few people I'm standing with for direction. Um, that's a big responsibility, and you have to be in. You have to speak up. Okay, you have to reach out. You have to you have to take the bull by the horns, if you will. But again, if are a person with goals and aspiration and want to lead, there are ways to do that. Now, so one of the questions I got offline before this is, how do I lead when I'm not the boss? Well, how you lead if you're not the boss is you have to understand what the mission is of your job, right? You have to understand what is trying to be done by the company you're with, what your role in it is, and what success looks like. Okay? Ask those questions. If you don't know those questions, if you're not clear about what your role and what you need to do is, get it clear. Number one, get it clear. And then start to understand the people around you's roles. Start to understand your boss's point of view, what they need to have happen for this to be a success. Understand what your coworkers are bringing to the table. Because as soon as you understand the elements, as soon as you understand how to bring the pieces together, you'll be able to elevate your work into a place where you're now making the people around you look better, making your boss look better, and making the work stand out. And you do that by understanding the objectives and seeing the playing field. You know, you can act like a leader long before you're the leader by excelling at what you're doing and making what you do so successful that it makes the people around you look good. And as soon as you start doing that, people are going to turn to you to do more. They're going to ask you to take on another load. They're going to ask you to help with this. When they start to see you as a problem solver, you will get more responsibility, more work, and ultimately the recognition. You will be leading. At that point, you're leading. When people are coming to you saying, "Hey, help me figure this out," that's a leadership question. They're opening the door for you. So by starting to solve those problems, you'll be able to start to jump up to that role. All right, I'm going to tell you a story. Um, I was going to tell you a story. Um, I have to think of it. I wrote it down and then I threw it away because I didn't want anything written down. Um, the so I so the job I described earlier, this creative producer job, were these multitude of things that I look over, from creative to financial to orchestration of players and parts, and ultimately my job now is an amalgamation of the things that I've done well at. But how I got here, how I got into a leadership position, how I got into this role was one hire from one company who asked me to do a project, a production. While doing that production, other things started to pop up, and I knew what I was good at, and I said I could help do that. And then I could help do this. And then the things that I was helping with were the things that I knew how to do. And before I knew it, my job had turned into what I was good at. It had turned into television production. It turned into event production. It turned into PR stunts. It turned into trade shows. It turned into bringing abstract ideas to life for advertising and marketing purposes across the full spectrum of things. Now, even today, I'm a bit of a unicorn because of the skill set, but the skill set was acquired by being in a position to help somebody else out and start to do that other job. So the short story is, after a short period of time, my job evolved into what I was good at. And then the funny thing happens is people say to you, "How did you get a job that you were so perfectly suited for?" The answer is I didn't. I was hired to do a task. I did the task and I looked around to see what else I could help at. And when I raised my hand, it was in areas that I wanted to, or I thought I had a skill and an aptitude for, and I started helping there. And then you become in charge of that. And then you become in charge of this. And then your job is what you love. It's kind of crazy, but that's real life theory. That's what happened. That's what happened for me, and it can happen for you. If you're interested in what you're doing and you want to succeed and you understand the goals of the company that you're working for, you just need to keep making the right steps to help the people above you and around you look better. You will get recognized, you know. So it's a tough job environment we're in right now. So it's tough to talk about having the perfect job. I mean, some of this depends on my success, depended on me loving what I do, loving it to the point where I'm still doing it, not because I need to, because I want to. I love what I do and I love the problem solving and I love the people. I'm still enthusiastic about what I do. So for me, the progression was easier in some ways because I loved what I did. Someone recently asked me, let's not lie, I'm a senior member of society now. Um, when are you going to retire? Well, I thought about it and I was like, I'd have to actually go to work first. Meaning I don't feel like I've really worked. I have. I've worked hard. I've worked tremendously hard, done big things. But the reality of that is I've enjoyed what I've done so much that it didn't feel like work. It was clearly a career and a career I was vested in and interested in, still enjoy. So when will I stop? I don't know. People direct movies till I don't know. I mean, I have no, there's not like I'm counting down a date. So that's passion. All right. That's leadership qualities without being a leader. That shines through your enthusiasm for what you're doing, how you show up, the questions you ask, understanding the context about what we're trying to do. These are all great things. You know, find a mentor in your business or in the world. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of knowledge willing to share with you. This network and the Pro Voice Network, that's part of the Workaday family, tremendous amount of career knowledge, wisdom, um, and they're accessible and can talk to you. And you should have a mentor or two. There should be somebody you go to, somebody that you look up to that you can talk to. Um, let's talk about leadership qualities and what. Let's talk about your qualities. What makes you who you are? What are you? You're an amalgamation of the people that you've worked with and the people you respect. Most likely, your parents are a heavy influence, and then some of your high school teachers and college teachers and young bosses, and then the associates you work with. What you start to do is pick the best. You start to see traits, you start to see things that you admire, and you adapt them. That becomes your leadership style. That becomes who you are. You know, that's when initiative meets opportunity. All right. That's when you stand up. That's when you're in that position where you're helping other people, making them look better, making the outcome better, and people start to give you more. That's where your initiative will turn into opportunity. Now, how do you be patient enough for that? How do you not want to brag about what you've done before it's time? You know, there is a time and place for everything. There is a time and place. I talk to and mentor a lot of younger people. I have young men that are my children that I speak to. That it's frustrating not to be where you want to be when you're young. It's challenge. Hopefully, you're on a career path or you've identified what makes you happy, and you can channel and chase that and get into that profession in the right organization. Right, in the right organization, and you'll know the right organization shortly after you're there. You probably know it now. There's a culture thing. There's a energy. There is a presence about the people around you in a company. So in my business, I work for so many different companies. I step into ad agencies and brands, and you can tell a lot about the leadership of the company from the very first meeting and the enthusiasm of the people in the room, and their how they walk, how they talk, how they you can tell if they feel recognized, empowered. That's leadership is building other leaders. It's not creating more followers. So what does that mean? Why did I just say that? Get a boss who wants you to shine and wants you to become a leader. And I'm not saying like get a boss like you can just pick one out of the woodwork, but that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who wants to teach, show, and give you access to more. And they'll do that when you overdo and deliver on what you're doing. But that person, that mentor, that next step, that person who's willing to open up and show you a little bit about how they do what they do and bring you along, invaluable. I've had many teachers in my lifetime, and I'm still taught. I'm taught sometimes now by the youngest people on the set, um, because there's always something new to learn, and there's a way to go about it. Learning is not a temporary thing, you know, and learning people's skills and learning how to make others look better. I had this thing that I used to talk to my kids about. They were very good athletes all the time, but they weren't the best players on their team, but they were catalyst type people. They were the type of people that when they're on the field, they made the team better. That's what I would talk to them about. If your team is better for your being on it, you'll be on more teams than the star. You'll have a longer career and might be a tad bit happier if you're on winning teams. So that's something you have to look out for. So how do I stand out? You know, again, you create, you fill the void, you step into the niche, you ask the questions, and you go beyond, you know, and you show up ready to work. When I just talked about a few minutes ago, when I walk into companies, I cannot tell you the number of times that I've sat down with teams, creative teams from companies that are in a dysfunction, and this is a couple of them plop in a chair in a conference room and go like, it's not a good sign. You know, it's not a good sign. They're not recognized now, whether that's their fault or not. Um, they, they, I just got a thumbs up from somebody out there. Thank you. They have been beaten into that role because I don't think anybody uh, goes to work on any given day looking for the worst to happen. You know, uh, so some questions from outside that, yeah, visibility follows usefulness. All right. When you're useful, when you start filling that void, people are going to notice. You don't have to jump up and down and say, hey, I did this. Uh, People will notice who did what. You know, here's the thing from years of being on sets and film and event production. I walk on a set, I don't know everybody who's hired, but being an assistant director, somebody who's running the show, there are people that are appointed to me to help me orchestrate the day. I can tell you within minutes which one of them, there'll be one, two of them that right away I'm like, come with me. It's a look in their eyes. It is a snap. There is, you're responsible for how you're seen by the people you want to be recognized by. You need to be ready, you know, initiative and opportunity. Opportunity is going to come when they see you're engaged. When you give somebody a task and they complete it and they come back to you, or if they ask you, this is a simple but basic principle in life, I'm going to tell you folks, and about leadership and leading. If someone asks you to do something, completely understand what's being asked before you walk away saying you can do it. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not sure I know how to do that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. The mistake is made is if somebody of authority or a leadership role or anyone gives you a task and you say, yes, and you leave, and the first thing you think is, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Bad move. Bad move. Because leadership will ultimately be about delegating a lot of work to people and delegating work and trust. And trust is earned. And trust is earned from that first moment you're asked to do something all the way through. That builds in your character. Great leaders have to have tough discussions all the time. They're in the room where decisions are made. Decisions are made. You know, it said I lost connection. I don't know if I did there. If you guys, I lost you, but it looks like I'm back. Um, so, what does leadership look like? I mentioned stepping into so many companies. I made a note over here. You feel it in the team's energies. You know, you know, energy leaders create the workspace where others want to excel in. I, a long time ago, stopped taking credit for everything that ever happens around me. I never really have. But what I will take credit for is being smart enough to put the players together and listen to them in the right moments to orchestrate what has to happen, the magic of the moment. Now, again, I'm fortunate in one way. I work in an industry where the players change pretty rapidly, so I don't get burned out. I don't get burned out on a team. I don't get burned out. I haven't worked 3 years with somebody that doesn't work. We don't do that because in the profession I'm in, the players that excel go on to the next show and the other ones find another show. That's just the way it goes. You're good at what you do. You're needed on the next job. You go with us and we start over. We do another project from the get-go. And why I said I'm fortunate is because with a short window and a goal like a movie or a film or an event or a corporate meeting, a big spectacle, whatever it is, a pageantry of open ceremonies, there's a timeline. It's and people put aside a lot of the interpersonal BS. You know, keep that out of your workspace if you can. People they don't need that. You know, so um, how do you build trust with leaders? I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go back to it about seeing what they need from their eyes. So the more you know about the show, the better you can produce any element of the show. Think of it as Thanksgiving dinner. Have you ever made one? There's a lot of orchestration. Thank God to all the moms and dads and families who pull that together. But it takes time to understand how to arrange all those parts and serve them at the right time. Well, that's true in your job. Whatever your job is, whether you're in a creative service or whether you're in a work for a contractor or you work in IT, there is a structure and a pyramid of services that layer to build a final product. The more you get the visibility to what the big picture is, the more you can over deliver in your piece. And then when time is right, step up and orchestrate the other pieces. You have to be curious um, about what it is you're building, you know, and this is business too. Leaders have to make tough calls. Leaders have to sit down at the end of the year. Leaders have to answer to a whole different set of questions. It's easy to be in a company and wonder why this and that. When you're in charge or you have stockholders and board of directors, the types of questions that they get asked, the pressure that your boss may be under, or your boss's boss, or boss's boss's boss, to the best of your ability, you have to understand. Um, because it's what shapes everybody and your stepping stones above. You need to be able to see a little bit of what success looks like for them and what would make their their life easier to do your job better to help that. The more you can help that, the better you're going to be. You know, what separates the leaders from the rest? That was a question I got earlier. Well, one of the things we've talked a little bit about is integrity. Integrity in decision making, integrity in when given an assignment, making sure it's clear about what's needed from you. And if not, make sure you ask. Those fundamental behavior structures will only get personified and expanded and turn into a leadership style. All right. And leaders don't make excuses. They're accountable for what goes on with the people under them. I've had a lot of things go sideways on me on shows I wasn't aware that were going on. But is it my responsibility if it's my show? Yes, it is. Am I responsible to solve it? Yes, I am. Am I responsible to understand how it happened and try to prevent it from happening again? Yeah, I am. I am not somebody who's going to go, well, I didn't have anything to do with that. That's not an answer that you can really give and stand by forever. That answer will only work when the dog ate your homework. That's not going to work when you didn't meet an initiative, a launch date, the website didn't launch, some technology failed. You know, you cannot in a leadership role not be accountable for your team. That is a fundamental character of leadership is character, developing your character and standing up, you know, and seeing solutions. Problems are easy to spot. Problems are easy to identify. Solutions are not always as simple, not always as fun to talk about, but solutions are what make things move forward. One of the things that I teach when I'm on a set, and I teach a lot of young PAs and second ADs and people to start to understand the production flow, uh, is is to always have a heads up to ask why and what and understand. You know, I give them the exposure and the ability to ask me anything. Now, there's times where I can't talk about much, and then there's times where anyone who works for me who wants to learn something, I will either get them hooked up with the right person or take the time to show them, and help them to the next step. Because when you empower somebody to get to where they want to go, they're gonna work harder for you. It's just the way works. Leadership works with enthusiasm as well. I said earlier about myself that I still love what I do. When I'm on set, when I'm on a show, when I'm in a creative predicament, uh, I I actually perform better under pressure than not under pressure. And it's just something cooked into me, but I don't mind that. I want that. There are people like that. Here's the other thing: not everybody who leads is going to have the title, right? Or going to be dynamic. There are quieter leaders. Um, there are channels to leadership that are quieter. Now, in the social media era and age that we live in, verbosity seems to be a lot of people's gateway to success. Don't you know? Again, you have to be. For me, I have to I have to admire the person that I want to be. I'll just leave it at that. That's one of those things that, you know, um, so I wrote this line down too: responsibility is the new visibility, right? That's this thing I'm talking about right now. Being accountable, being one that'll stand up for the work that you're doing, will let you shine, you know? So we only have a few minutes left. And, I answered some questions from outside the room. I didn't see any in here that we got during the session that I didn't answer. If I did, I am sorry I didn't answer them. Um, here's another quote that I pulled that I like because it's so simple. Sometimes I love truisms, and I do like some stereotypes because they identify things in us that are true. And this quote says, "A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves." You know, man, boom, right on. Be a better you, be a better teammate, be a better person for the leader, become a leader. Um, these are instinctual things. I think there's soft skills, right? Leadership and how to work around your job. There's the task that you're given, and then there's how you're going to complete it and how it's going to integrate with the rest of the group. You know, if you're really, really good at what you're doing right now, and you're at the 90 percentile of that knowledge, and the thing you need most is to work on the connection and people skills, work on that. Work on, look around and see who you can help out and fill in with. You have to always, for me, I always felt like whenever I knew about 70%, if I know my job, technically job inside out, then I have to look for what I can learn next. I can learn people skills. I can learn to manage up. I can learn to corporate. I can teach. There's a lot of things I can do to make sure that I have a lot to learn, because the worst place you want to be in is thinking you know everything you need to know about what you're doing. Because that has bitten me. Whenever I am overconfident, I have to approach every job as if I've never done it before, because sometimes the simplicity of new eyes is the answer. I often find the answer to problems is the simplest solution. We run around looking for it, but it's right in front of us the whole time. So that's our half hour. I appreciate you guys who were here and the questions I got before the session. And keep tuned to Work It Daily for good stuff and other pro voices. And find a mentor, reach out, and you can lead without the title. Just lead in the way you show up. That's how I'd close this. Have a great day. Thank you for your time.